Welcome to Marine Biology, everyone. This is Mr. Vallejo, and today we'll be taking a look at aquarium filter assembly. This is just a reminder for you, if you're taking Cornell notes, you can use the template that is in your learning management system, whether that's Schoology or it's Canvas. You can set your paper up like this if you're taking notes on paper. That's totally acceptable. Then you can take a picture of this and submit that as your assignment. Okay. Now, with aquarium filters, as we talked about last week, we were taking a look at the 6 principles of aquarium husbandry. Your filter needs to help you eliminate solid waste in your fish tank. Your filter also needs to neutralize chemical waste. Now, the first one is called biological filtration. We learned that before. The second one, this is called chemical filtration when we have chemical waste. Now, when you eliminate the solid waste, that's biological, that bacteria are going to do it, but it's also when you're just getting a chunk out and just scooping it out, your filter will do that. So we call that mechanical filtration. So this represents all the types of filtration in a fish aquarium filter. So eliminating a solid waste is a type of mechanical filtration. Neutralizing chemical waste is a type of chemical filtration, and maximize oxygen levels for fish and bacteria. We're going to do that with a bubbler, as you're going to see in just a moment. So here are those 3 types of filtration I just mentioned: mechanical, chemical, and biological filtration. Mechanical is just somehow with the machine, scooping up all the extra food, or scooping up all the fish waste. That's mechanical filtration. And then in the back of the filter, you also have some chemicals, some different chemicals. Some are black in color. It's called activated carbon, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But that does a good job of what we call chemical filtration. And then finally, you have biological filtration, and the bacteria that live in the floss that's inside your aquarium filter. Well, that floss has a lot of bacteria, and those bacteria are going to get rid of the ammonia, like we've already studied with. There's some some bacteria that take your ammonia and turn that ammonia into nitrites. And then there's other bacteria that take those nitrites and turn it into nitrates. Last week we learned about nitrous ammonius and nitrobacter. Those are 2 different bacteria that have those jobs. All right, so mechanical filtration. What's going to happen in mechanical filtration is, there's a water filter, and then all of your water in your tank is going to go through that filter. And when it goes through that filter, there is some aquarium floss. It's like a strainer. And what it's going to do is it's going to strain out all the extra food that you have, if you've overfed your fish, or all the waste products. Hopefully waste products will get stuck inside your filter. Then what you can do is take out that part of the filter and rinse it, but not rinse it with water from the sink, but water from your aquarium, and you would put it in a bucket and then take your filter and wiggle it around real fast. That would hopefully knock off a lot of the chunks, but save the bacteria that are living on your filter. Your filter in the back, called your rear filter, also is a chemical filter. And if you've ever taken apart, and we'll see some photographs of it, if you've ever taken apart a aquarium filter, it has these little teeny, they look like little teeny pebbles, little rocks inside of them. But actually that's activated carbon. And activated carbon, what it does is it absorbs all these chemicals that we're worried about. Too much chlorine in the water. If you have nitrites and even too much nitrate, the activated carbon will react with those chemicals, and sometimes there's an actual chemical reaction that changes it to a form that's not as hazardous as whatever it's starting out as. Sometimes it makes it bigger so that it sticks in a filter. It's called flocking. So F-L-O-C. Sometimes Well, in fact, in water treatment, when you're trying to clean up the water good enough for people to drink, that's a process that's used. We add chemicals to the water, and then the filter is able to catch that particle because now it's big enough and it gets stuck in a filter. Sometimes your water is going to be too hard. If at your house you have problems with a crusty white chemical, sometimes it shows up on your uh, shower head. Sometimes when you wash the dishes, if you get a lot of spots after you dry your dishes in the dishwasher, well, if you have either of those problems, it means that your water's too hard. So that's also hazardous to chemicals because those are minerals that are floating around in the fish water, the aquarium water. So we also have in the filter a chemical called zeolite. And what zeolite does is it softens out hard water. And then a third type of biological filtration is by those bacteria. A third type of filtration is biological filtration. And there's the nitrosomonas and nitrobacter. Remember, the nitrosomonas is a denitrifying bacteria, and it takes, it's a deaminification bacteria. And what it does is it changes the ammonia to a different form called nitrites. And then the nitrobacter, what it's going to do is change the chemical from nitrite to nitrate. So that's why the nitrobacter is known as a denitrifying bacteria, because it takes the nitrites and then changes it into nitrates. So that's what your bacteria does. But bacteria, even though they live in that rear filter, you're also going to see that we have an undergravel filter. So if you have a really nice aquarium or a really expensive one, then what you're going to do is you're going to put an undergravel filter in. I think a lot of people don't understand this part. So if you have someone who's just starting out in the hobby of keeping fish, they might have a filter on the back of the tank, but really the best filter is the undergravel filter. And what it does is it increases the airflow through the bottom gravel. And because there's air flowing through the bottom gravel, then the bacteria, the nitrosomonas and the nitrobacter are more healthy, and they'll reproduce more, and they'll have more of them, and they'll do their job. And their job, remember, is to get rid of that ammonia. So that's a biological filtration. You have that bubbling system that goes through your undergravel filter, then there's more oxygen for the bacteria. So the bacteria can really do their thing. From here on out, the text at the very top doesn't change, but the items do change. So you might want to take a look at the, as you're taking notes, just write down the new item that shows here. This is the undergravel support. And you take a look over here. There's your undergravel supports. I put a pen next to it so you can see the size of it. But I also will show you that what I did was I took the PVC pipe and drilled holes in it, because when we lay it across a tank like that, then there's going to be something on top of this, and then the water won't be able to go through. Hopefully with the holes, the water will be able to pass through these small holes and go all throughout the bottom of the aquarium. All right. There's a filter, the undergravel filter that we would make in class. And this is something I got from Home Depot, which is just it's called a light diffuser. This particular one is called an egg crate light diffuser because it looks like somewhere where you could put eggs in if you were a farmer. And if this were bigger, if these holes were bigger, you could put an egg in it. And a light diffuser is if you were in a classroom, you can look up and see the fluorescent lights. The fluorescent, you don't usually see the tube, but what you see is a piece of plastic that's covering it. So this is just one style of light diffuser. So we took those light diffusers and we cut them with a saw, and we cut them to fit the bottom of the aquarium. Now in my room we have 10-gallon aquariums, so this is cut to fit. And then on the very top we have some window screening, like, you know, when you open a window, there's your window screen. Well, I had some extra window screen. You put those on top so that the rocks won't fall through those larger squares. You also got to put a hole in the very back, so make sure that the holes in the rear of the tank, because you could flip this and put it in the front, but um, although you're trying to make it so that the fish are okay and breathing all right and healthy, it's also, people keep fish tank because they're pleasing. So you don't really want to see the apparatus of the aquarium if you don't have to. So usually we put that lift tube, it's called, in the very back. Here's a bigger, a larger enlarged picture photograph of the hole for the lift tube. That lift tube's going to fit right in there, and it's going to hold it up. The rocks around it will also hold up that tube so it stands up nice and straight so it can do its job. All right, so this is the lift tube, or that's a hole for lift tube. Then you place the undergravel filter on top of those supports that we pre-drilled. There it is right there. There's 3 of them. You can put 4 or 5 in there. They're going to hold up all the rocks at the bottom of the aquarium though. So that's what this thing has to do. There's another look at it. And you can see the holes in the bottom or back right corner of this setup. And so in the previous picture, you can see it's right there, also on the back right. All right, so now we got to make the lift tube. If we were in class, what we would do is we would pass the tube into this elbow, and the tubing is right here, is aquarium tubing. And this is going to go all the way down a straight tube that's right here. At the end of the aquarium tubing is this thing right here. It's called an air stone. So I wrote tubing goes into the elbow right here. At the end of the tubing is the air stone. You put that in the lift tube also. And then it says feed the air stone into the top of that lift tube, like this. So now I'm going to put this whole thing all the way down to the bottom of this tube and then clip this on to the edge. So here's a picture of it. That's it, completed. That's your lift tube, because it's gonna lift the water up when the air bubbles go up there. Then the water current will start, and it's going to go through there. This is the air pump, and it's going to feed water into this, or not water, it's going to feed air into this tube right here. The air is going to go over there, and then to the end. At the end of this tube is that air stone, which makes the bubbles much smaller than they are. And then when the bubbles come up this tube, then it's going to start a water current also as the water moves. So there's your air pump right there. Right, so now we have it all standing up. It might be a little loose, but when you put rocks around here, it'll hold it up just fine. Okay, so place the lift tube upright in the hole and your gravel will hold it up. So that's the undergravel filter, but at the beginning of this talk, I just talked about the rear filter, and the rear filter has many parts. So let's take a look at them. It's pretty simple though. The first thing to point out is this thing right here called the front mesh. That has to do with the mechanical filtration. It takes out the big chunks of waste and extra food, and you can take just this part out and rinse it out every, once a week. You could do that and take care of the chunks in the water. So that's your front mesh. Right behind it is the floss, and this one's a bag. And so it has floss on both sides, but it also, they sew the sides shut so it's like a bag. And inside this bag, we put the 2 chemicals I mentioned. Those are activated carbon and zeolite. Remember, the activated carbon will clean up all kinds of things like chlorine and nitrites. They look like little black rocks. Also mixed in with the black rocks are these white rocks called zeolite. And zeolite will make your water softer. And on top of that, you can see this bag, when I started this aquarium, was white, and now it's kind of green. Why is that? Because the filter runs all day long. But there's also bacteria living on this filter, and those are good bacteria that are working to clean the water of ammonia and nitrites. So after you put your filter together, you stick it on there and back. You also need a heater. So these two will scoot around, and it depends on what type of hood you have, because you need that hood to cover the fish tank. Remember, because some fish will, when they get stressed out, they'll even start jumping out of the water. So you want to make sure that your top is covered, but not covered so much that these guys can't do their job. So you might have to scoot them over back and forth in order to fit with whatever hood you have. So it says they're hanging in the rear, but make sure that your hood will still work properly with the rear filter and heater in place. So you just have to adjust that. All right, if we're in class, we would actually do, and hopefully we'll be in class soon and we can set up your tank, and then in future talks, I'll show you how to fill it up and maintain the tank, and then we'll also determine how to add compatible species of fish, or maybe we'll have just a mono species tank. We'll have several of those also, or yours might be a specialized tank, like for a reptile or a amphibian. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll get to set those up soon. But that was a talk on aquarium filter assembly. So thanks for listening. And at this point, I'll ask you if you have any questions. I'm still recording.